Did I commit a crime? No. Did my friend commit a crime? No. Did we conspire to committing a crime? No. The only thing we had done together was make a trip to Afghanistan in February 1992 to help the people fight against communism. And as far as I was concerned, that was not a crime, at least in Mauritania. So why was I so scared? Because crime is something relative. It's something the government defines and redefines whenever it pleases. The majority of people don't know really where the line is that separates breaking the law from not breaking it. If you get arrested, the situation worsens because most people trust the government to have a good reason for the arrest. On top of that, if I personally had to suffer, I didn't want anybody to suffer with me. I thought they arrested my friend in connection with the Millennium Plot, if only because he had been in Afghanistan once. I entered the interrogation room, which was the office of the DSE. The room was large and well furnished. Leather couch, 2 love seats, coffee table, closet, 1 big desk, 1 leather chair, a couple of other chairs for unimportant guests, and as always the picture of the president conveying the weakness of the law and the strength of the government. I wish they had turned me over to the US. At least there are things I could refer to there, such as the law. Of course, in the US, the government and politics are gaining more and more ground lately at the cost of the law. The government is very smart. It evokes terror in the hearts of people to convince them to give up their freedom and privacy. Still, it might take some time until the US government overthrows the law completely, like in the Third World and the communist regimes. But really, that is none of my concern, and thank God my government doesn't possess the technology to track Bedouins in the vast desert. There were 3 guys in the interrogation room: the DSE, his assistant, and his recorder. The DSE asked them to bring my stuff in. They thoroughly searched everything I had. No stone remained unturned. They didn't speak to me. They only spoke with each other, mostly in whispers, just to annoy the hell out of me. At the end of the search, they sorted out my papers and put aside the ones they thought interesting. Later on, they asked me about every single word in those papers. "I'm going to interrogate you. I just want to tell you as a forewarning that you better tell me the whole truth," the DSE said firmly, making a big effort to take a break from smoking his pipe, which he never took off his lips. "I sure will," I answered. "Take him back," the DSE dryly ordered the guards. "Listen, I want you to tell me about your whole life and how you joined the Islamic movement," said the DSE when the guards dragged my skeleton away from the mosquitoes and back into the interrogation room. If you get arrested the first time, chances are that you're not going to be forthcoming, and that's okay. Even though you know you haven't done any crimes, it seems sensible. You're very confused, and you'd like to make yourself appear as innocent as possible. You assume you are arrested more or less on a reasonable suspicion, and you don't want to cement that suspicion. Moreover, questioning involves a lot of stuff nobody wants to talk about, like your friends and your private life. Especially when the suspicions are about things like terrorism, the government is very rude. In the interrogation, you always avoid talking about your friends and your private, intimate life. And finally, you are so frustrated because of your arrest, and you really don't owe your interrogators anything. On the contrary, they owe you to show you the true cause of your detention, and it should be entirely up to you to comment then or to leave them be. If this cause is enough to hold you, you can seek professional representation. If not, well, you shouldn't be arrested in the first place. That's how the civilized world works. And everything else is dictatorship. Dictatorship is governed by chaos. To be honest with you, I acted like any average person. I tried to make myself look as innocent as a baby. I tried to protect the identities of every single person I knew, unless he or she was too well known to the police. The interrogations continued in this manner, but when they opened the Canadian file, things soured decidedly. The US government saw in my arrest and my rendition to Mauritania a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity to unveil the plan of Ahmed Ressam, who back then was refusing to cooperate with the US authorities. Furthermore, the US wanted to learn in detail about my friends in both Canada and Germany, and even outside those countries. After all, my cousin and brother was already wanted with a reward of $5 million. The US also wanted to learn more about the whole jihadi issue in Afghanistan, Bosnia, and Chechnya. Expertise for free. For the aforementioned, and for other reasons I don't know, the US drove my case as far as it could be driven. They labeled me mastermind of the Millennium Plot. They asked all countries to provide any tiny bit of information they possessed about me, especially Canada and Germany. And since I'm already a bad guy, force must be applied to roast me. To the dismay of the US government, things were not really as they seemed, nor did the government achieve what it wanted. No matter how smart somebody plans, God's plan always works. I felt like Tupac's Me Against the World, and here's why. All the Canadians could come up with was, we have seen him with X and Y and they're bad people. We've seen him in this and that mosque. We've intercepted his telephone conversations, but there's nothing really. The Americans asked the Canadians to provide them with the transcripts of my conversations, but after they edited them. Of course, it doesn't make sense to selectively take different passages from a whole conversation and try to make sense of them. I think the Canadians should have done one of two things. Either refused to provide the Americans any private conversation that took place in their country, or provided them the whole conversation in its original form, not even translated. Instead, out of the words the Canadians chose to share with their US colleagues, US interrogators magically stuck with two words for more than 4 years: tea and sugar. What do you mean by tea and sugar? I mean tea and sugar. I cannot tell you how many times the US asked me and made other people ask me this question. Another Mauritanian folktale recounts about a man who was born blind and who had one chance to get a glimpse of the world. All he saw was a rat. After that, whenever anybody tried to explain anything to the guy, he always asked, compare it with a rat. Is it bigger, smaller? Canadian intelligence wished I were a criminal so they could make up for their failure when slipped from their country to the US carrying explosives. The US blamed Canada for being a preparation ground for terrorist attacks against the US, and that's why Canadian intel freaked out. They really completely lost their composure, trying everything to calm the rage of their big brother, the US. They began watching the people they believed to be bad, including me. I remember after the plot, the Canadians tried to implant 2 cameras, one in my room, one in my roommate's. I used to be a very heavy sleeper. I heard voices, but I couldn't tell what it was. Or let's say, I was too lazy to wake up and check on them. My roommate was different. He woke up and followed the noise. He laid low and watched until the tiny hole was through. The guy in the other room blew through the hole, and when he checked with his eye, he made eye contact with him. He woke me up and told me the story. I heard the same voices in my room, I said to him. Let's check. Our short investigation was successful. We found a tiny twin hole in my room. What should we do? He asked. We call the police, I said. Well, call them, he said. I purposely didn't use our telephone. Instead, I went out and used a public phone, dialing 911. 2 cops showed up, and I explained to them that our neighbor, without our consent, drilled 2 holes in our house, and we wanted him to be held for his illegal action towards us. Basically, we asked for fair relief. Put some cork inside the holes and the problem is solved, said one of the cops. Really? I didn't know that. Are you a carpenter? I said. Look, I didn't call you to give me advice on how to fix my house. There's an obvious crime behind this, trespassing and violation of our privacy. If you don't take care of us, we'll take care of ourselves. And by the way, I need you guys' business cards, I said. Each one silently produced a business card with the other cop's name and contact on the back of it. Obviously, those cops were following some idiot directions in order to deceive us, but for the Canadian intel, it was too late. For days to come, we were just sitting and making fun of the plan. The irony was that I lived in Germany for 12 years and he never provided any incriminating information about me, which was accurate. I stayed less than 2 months in Canada, and yet the Americans claimed that the Canadians provided tons of information about me. The Canadians don't even know me. But since all intel work is based on what-ifs, Mauritania and the US started to interpret the information as they pleased in order to confirm the theory that I was the mastermind of the Millennium Plot. The interrogation didn't seem to develop in my favor. I kept repeating my Afghanistan jihad story of 1991 and early 1992, which didn't seem to impress the Mauritanian interrogator. Mauritania doesn't give a damn about a trip to Afghanistan. They understand it very well. If you try to make trouble inside the country, however, you're going to be arrested, regardless of whether or not you've been in Afghanistan. On the other hand, to the American government, a bare visit to Afghanistan, Bosnia, or Chechnya is worth watching you for the rest of your life and trying to lock you up. All the Arabic countries have the same approach as Mauritania, except the communist ones. I even think the communist Arab countries are at least fairer than the US government in this regard, because they forbid their citizens to go to jihad in the first place. Meanwhile, the US government prosecutes people based on an unwritten law.
So